let's see what it looks like on the inside.
Let's make some sourdough English muffins. You'll need a bowl and a scale. You'll need some sourdough starter, either active starter or just recently fed starter that has maintained its height. The rubber band shows that it doubled in size yesterday, and so I placed it in the fridge. It fell just a tiny bit, so this is still fine to use. If you don't know what active starter is, check out my other video on how to feed your sourdough starter. I'll link it down in the description. Add 100 grams of active starter or recently active starter. If you've never used a scale before, hit the tare button and it will zero it out. Then add 240 grams of milk. I ran out of milk, so I ended up using this buttermilk I made when I tried making butter from scratch, which is super easy. All you need is heavy whipping cream. I couldn't believe how easy it was. Next, I just wanted to give it a little mix to kind of separate the sourdough starter a bit into the milk. Next up, add 20 grams of honey. I'm using raw honey. Then add 5 grams of salt. Now I just give that a bit of a mix. Now add 370 grams of all-purpose flour. I ran out of flour, so it's time to reload. Now just start mixing all the ingredients until they start to incorporate together. Now you start kneading it together. I just kind of fold it first into each other to get rid of all of those little edgy ends. And then as you knead, you basically are going to bring the furthest part towards you, like you're folding it like a taco, and then you're going to push your hand away from you out. And you just keep doing that and keep turning the dough. Every time you do it, turn it a little bit more and do it to the next side next to it. So you're just going to knead it for about 5 minutes. And as you're kneading, if it's a bit too sticky to work with, then just use a little bit of flour. Now to create a bit of a seam on the bottom, you just basically turn it in towards you. So turn it like a candy cane. You're just turning, and you're kind of cupping the bottom of the dough ball. Then I just plump up the sides and stick it in the bowl. Then I just cover it with a little plastic wrap so it doesn't dry out. You could also put a tea towel on it, and I put a lid on it and let it sit for a few hours with this heating mat on, because that will speed up the process. You just want it to basically double in size, so it might take quite a bit of time depending on how cold it is in your house. If your house is cold and you did it in the evening, just stick it out and leave it out overnight. I'm leaving mine out for a few hours, and then I'm going to place it in the fridge until tomorrow. So I ended up leaving this dough out for 6 hours with a heating mat on because it was so cold. But look how much it's risen already. Here's the before, and here's what it looks like after proofing for about 6 hours. Now I'm going to place it in the fridge and I'll bring it out tomorrow. It's now the next day, so just for reference, I was finished making the dough at about 4:30 yesterday, let it sit out till about 10:30 at night, last night, put it in the fridge. It's about 10:30 in the morning, and now here's the reveal. I let it sit out again for about 2 hours today just to bring it back up to temperature. And also for reference, my house is about the high 50s, low 60s at night, so it's pretty cold in our house. So gently take the dough out of the bowl, and then you're going to stretch it out to be about 1/2 inch to 1 inch thick. And when you stretch it, try to kind of stretch it from the middle first so that you're not just pulling on the edges and then the edges are thin and the middle's thicker. So you just want to kind of stretch it out to where it's somewhat even throughout. You can also try a rolling pin, but you just really don't want to flatten it. Now, if you want thicker English muffins, you're not going to want to flatten it out as much as I'm doing. I'm just making them a bit thinner so the recipe will yield more English muffins per batch. And then also so we're not eating as much bread per serving. So I have this dough spread out to be probably about 1/2 inch thick. If you want the muffins thicker, then keep it closer to about 1 inch thick, and maybe you'll get about 8 English muffins per batch. Next, get your cookie cutter. I am using a cup 4 inches in diameter because the biggest cookie cutter I have is only 3 inches, and that's really small for English muffins. You at least want to use like 3.5 inches. I do have cookie cutters on the way, but they're not here yet. Now just cut out your circles and get as many muffins out as possible. Once you cut the English muffins, you're going to dip the bottom in cornmeal. If you don't have cornmeal, all you need is popcorn kernels on hand. You can just grind those up in the coffee grinder or a food processor. That's what I did. Then you just dip the bottom of each English muffin into the cornmeal. What I do is with all of the extra, I actually piece together a few extra English muffins that don't look perfect, but they still taste perfectly fine. I ended up piecing together all the scraps as I go, but in reality, you should probably just cut out all of the shapes first and then use the scraps at the end so you have the least amount of messed up looking English muffins. I didn't think about that till after the fact. I hope this video shows you don't have to do things perfectly, so don't be afraid of sourdough. Just give it a try, and even if it's not perfect, it's still going to come out good enough for your family to eat. And here I'm just kind of creating a seam and closing it up. Now just sprinkle the top with more cornmeal, or you could actually just dip both sides. Either way is fine. And now cover with a tea towel and just let the dough rest for an hour or so. I'm going to place some heating mats down below because it's cold in my house, but just depending on your temperature will determine how long you should leave it out. You just want to see it plump up a bit. I'll leave it out for about 1 to 2 hours. If you're currently in a warmer environment such as 80 degrees, all of your proofing time will be less, so just check it periodically. Okay, this is what they look like an hour and a half later. They're ready. Here's a before and after to see the difference. Now we're ready to cook these babies on the stove. Just get your skillet ready. I have mine preheated, and then just place them in the skillet, as many as you can fit. Adding a lid just helps trap the steam in to help it rise a bit, but I've done it both ways, without a lid and with a lid, and both ways are fine. Next, let it cook for a few minutes and then periodically check the bottoms. Once the bottoms are done to your liking, then you can flip them over. I probably let mine cook for about 5 or 6 minutes on the bottom and then 3 to 4 minutes on the top.
Now for the moment of truth. Let's open one of these English muffins up and see what it looks like on the inside. Perfection! These are going to be delicious. This yields 10. These ones, this is what the ones that we put together turned out to be like. We don't really care so much as long as they taste good. Here's our little donut. That was the one I put together. So either way, they came out, I think, pretty good. And they're going to be tasty, and they're not hard to make. So once you make the first batch, then you'll be able to throw them together quickly. I hope you give this a try. Thanks for watching.